Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Wyman again for Macroeconomics, and we're moving on to chapter 6. And I'm going to do a study questions and problems problem that's very similar to one in your homework. So hopefully this will help you out and you'll get a better idea of how to do the homework problem. So this is going to be about business cycles and unemployment. That's the chapter 6. And we're going to do problem 2 of study questions and problems. And this particular one is about the business cycle. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was this problem gives you a schedule. So you can see what the schedule is. These are quarters. There are 4 quarters in 1 year. So this is for 2.5 years. We're going to look at the real GDP figures for 10 quarters, which is 2.5 years. So on the graph, this is how it would look. You would have real GDP here, billions of dollars, and you would just chart this group of numbers. And then the quarters are here. So you would have 1 through 10. So these are your quarters. So what this is showing, you can see that for the first quarter, you're at 400. The second quarter, you're at 5. The third quarter, you're at 3, and so on, right? Right up until the last quarter of 10, you're at 500 here. So what I wanted to show you here is that you have to have a starting point. So this was the starting point, and then we had a peak at quarter 2 at $500 billion. Then we had a recession, and this is going down, and it stops at 200 billion. So we have the recession here, but this is also the trough. So the trough is the lowest point before a recovery begins. Of course, the problem is you can't see this until after it happens, right? So you really have to pay attention on trends, like what's happening over the course of the quarter. But until you actually have the quarter end, you really don't know until you can have an idea that maybe you're, on a downward spiral here, but you're not going to know for sure until the quarter's ends. And this is the problem with economics, because nobody can predict the future, right? So what they're doing is looking at past trends to try to predict future trends. So anyway, at the fourth quarter, at the $200 billion mark, this is a recession between the peak and the 200 billion, and it's also the trough, because then we can see we're starting to go up again, and then we peak, we have a recovery at the 1,000 billion mark. So right there, you can see the 4 business cycles: the peak, the recession, the trough, and the recovery. So the next part of the question in the textbook is what causes business cycle changes? So what could cause some of these things? One big thing is innovation, ways of innovation, technology. I think there's an example in your textbook about the wheel being invented. So that would be a structural change, but it's also an innovation, right? Where suddenly you don't need horses or you don't need people lugging things. You can load up a cart and wheel it around. So also transitions of industries producing, they were producing, say, war goods. Now they're producing consumer goods. So transitions of industries. Also the effect of government increasing and decreasing the money supply. We have you'll hear it on the news, they call it the Fed, it's the Federal Reserve Commission. So that can happen too. How do you increase the money supply? You reduce interest rates, and to decrease it, you increase interest rates. So when you want to increase the money supply and make money more available to people, you reduce borrowing restrictions possibly, and you definitely reduce interest. And if you want to retract the economy, you raise interest rates. That's the cost of borrowing money, right? So if it's cheap to borrow money, businesses particularly, they're going to go out and borrow money because they're getting a low interest rate. And if the interest rates are high, they're going to put off buying additional equipment or maybe hiring more people because they don't want to pay the higher interest on those loans. So what is a consequence of prolonged decline in real GDP? One of them, well, several really, but during a recession, and I think you know this intuitively, profits, employment, and income fall. We're in a recession right now where we're having price increases, but wages really aren't going up. Any raises that anybody has gotten so far has not kept up with the cost of inflation. So you're really not as well off as you were, say, a year and a half ago, because the cost of everything is going up. Just look at the cost of gasoline, for example. It's up 98 cents a gallon from a year ago at this time. So that means that, you know, let's just round it to $1. So that means that if you spent $1 last year on gas, this year you're spending $2. So it can be very difficult for a lot of people. So also employment falls because there aren't as many jobs available. So officially, real GDP must decline for 6 months to be considered a recession. And the last question on here is the decline in real GDP from, is the decline in real GDP from 1,000 billion to 500 billion, is that a recession? And no, it's not, because it occurs over a single 3-month quarter. So that's the problem. It's like you have to have these things in long term. So if it's 6 months rather than 3 months, right, then it's considered a recession. And if it's not, it's not. So that's that for this week for chapter 6. I already put something in your chart in your Moodle course for chapter 5. You have chapter 5 and 6 this week. So I hope this helps you, and I will see you next time.